It was his 16th birthday. I'd bought him a used car. Nothing fancy. Just a sturdy little sedan that wouldn't leave him stranded or break apart at the first pothole. I'd worked extra shifts for months to afford it. Karen, my wife, told me not to go overboard. She said his biological father, Todd, would probably show up with something expensive and impersonal. A watch, maybe, or another one of those shiny distractions he used to compensate for a lifetime of absence. But I told her I didn't care. I wasn't doing it to compete. I was doing it because I loved the kid. And that day, when I handed Alex the keys, he smiled in a way I hadn't seen since he was 10. Like the world had cracked open just for him. He said it softly, maybe without thinking, but I heard it all the same. "Thanks, Dad." I stood there in the driveway, pretending not to react. Pretending it was just a word, not a redemption. But inside I broke apart. All the years of biting my tongue, of swallowing slights, of being treated like a live-in helper instead of a parent, they melted in the warmth of that single word. If only I'd known that one word didn't mean anything. Not really. That moment was a gift. A lie wrapped in hope. I spent 16 years under the same roof with Karen and Alex. 16 years convincing myself that presence could replace blood. That sacrifice could earn respect. That if I just showed up enough, provided enough, softened enough, I'd be accepted. But you can't force someone to accept you as family when they've decided you're just a visitor. A tolerated inconvenience. It began like most tragedies do, quietly. Todd was never there, not really. He'd show up once or twice a year, usually around Christmas or Alex's birthday, always with gifts too flashy to be meaningful. The kind of gifts meant to impress, not connect. A new phone, an expensive cologne, a designer hoodie still in the plastic. He'd pose for a few pictures, throw a few $100 on the table, then vanish again like a mirage. I was the one who stayed. I was the one who made sure the lights stayed on, who paid the bills when Todd forgot child support, which was often. I took care of the groceries, the heating bill, the orthodontist appointments. I helped with homework when Karen was too tired, fixed broken bikes, replaced phones that mysteriously fell into toilets. I stood in the background so Alex could stand in the light. But standing in the background makes you easy to erase. At first, the signs were subtle. Alex would call me Mike instead of Dad when his friends were over. If I asked him to help with chores, he'd glance toward Karen like I'd overstepped. She'd give him a look and he'd obey, but never because I said so. Always because she said he had to. That powerlessness, that sense that I was performing fatherhood without any of its authority, gnawed at me. But I kept going. Because that's what you do when you love someone who doesn't love you back in the way you need. Then came the bills. College wasn't cheap. But when Alex got accepted, I didn't hesitate. I wanted him to have the kind of opportunities one never had. I paid for the dorms, the books, the laptop, the meal plan. When he asked to study abroad for a semester, I cashed out a retirement account to make it happen. Over $40,000 passed through my hands in that first year alone. All of it without thanks, without so much as a nod. Karen noticed sometimes. "You're doing too much," she'd say in passing. "He's not your blood." Then she'd go back to scrolling on her phone, not realizing the dagger she'd just twisted. If I wasn't his blood, then what was I? A paycheck? A placeholder? There was this hollow space growing inside me, widening with every silent meal, every eye roll, every time Alex asked his mother for permission in my presence like I didn't exist. And Karen, she'd excuse it all. "He's just going through a phase. He doesn't mean it." Teenagers are difficult, but difficulty isn't cruelty. And what Alex gave me, what Karen allowed, was cruelty dressed as adolescence. I remember the silence the most. The silence at the dinner table, the silence after my small requests, the silence after I'd make a joke or ask how his day was. Karen would talk. Alex would respond. But to me, silence. I became a fixture, not a man, not a father, just the guy who paid for things. It all built up to one night. One stupid, ordinary night. We were sitting at dinner, plates full. Karen had made chicken marsala, Alex's favorite. He'd just returned from a weekend at the university. We were talking about his classes, his friends, his future. I felt proud, even hopeful, like maybe, just maybe, we were finally finding some kind of rhythm. Then Karen made a comment. Light-hearted. Casual. She said, "You know, after all these years, people assume you two are father and son. You even have the same eyes." It wasn't a declaration. It was a joke. But it was the wrong joke. Alex's fork dropped with a clatter. He looked up, face stone flat. And then he said it. "Don't you dare give me your last name. You're not my father." Just like that. Cold. Measured. Surgical. 16 years. 16 years of sweat and sacrifice and swallowing my pride. Erased in 9 words. Karen froze. She opened her mouth, then shut it. Her silence was the loudest thing in the room. She didn't defend me. She didn't scold him. She just stared at her plate like maybe if she stayed still enough, it would all go away. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't even move. I just looked at him. The boy I had raised, who had lived under my roof, eaten my food, worn clothes I paid for, and felt something harden inside me. Not anger. Not yet. Just clarity. He didn't see me as a father. He never had. And if that was true, then everything I'd done. All those late nights, all those empty bank accounts, all those dad moments had meant nothing. That night, after the dishes were cleared and the lights turned off, I sat alone in my office. I stared at the bank statements, the payment confirmations, the tuition receipts. I stared at the evidence of every sacrifice I had made. And then I acted. With steady hands, I logged into my accounts and began cutting the cords. Tuition canceled. Rent transfers halted. Gas cards, grocery stipends, emergency funds, all frozen. One by one, I dismantled the support structure I had built with my bare hands. I didn't slam the keyboard. I didn't curse. I didn't cry. I just stopped. Because if I wasn't his father, I had no business pretending to be one. I had become the ghost in my own house. And ghosts don't pay tuition. There is a certain kind of silence that settles into a house after betrayal. Not loud. Not sharp. Just thick. Like humidity you can't sweat out. You breathe it in. It clings to your skin. It lives in the corners. That's how the house felt the morning after Alex said I wasn't his father. As if the walls themselves were listening, waiting. Karen moved through the kitchen like a stranger, quieter than usual. Her eyes avoided mine, and when they landed, they slid off like water from glass. She knew. Maybe she didn't agree with him, not completely. But she didn't disagree either. That was the problem. She had stood still when I needed her to speak. And in that stillness, everything between us cracked. I still slept beside her that night, in the same bed, under the same blanket. But there was a canyon between us. I stared at the ceiling. She stared at the wall. Her breathing never quite settled. Mine never even started. That morning I made coffee, sat at the dining table, watched the sunlight drip through the blinds like honey gone cold. And I waited. Karen came downstairs. No eye contact. She moved around me like I was furniture, poured her coffee, sat across from me. The silence sat with us. A third person, bigger than both. Then it came. The envelope. She opened the mail absently, not expecting anything. But when she pulled out the thick letterhead, her hands froze. It was from the university. I didn't look up. I didn't have to. I knew what it said. I'd made the cancellation myself. Her voice was a whisper. "Michael." It says tuition wasn't paid. Still, I didn't move. I lifted my coffee cup, took a slow sip, looked at her over the rim. There was no mistake. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Just the letter trembling in her hands. Her face had that look. Not confusion, not yet anger. Just the first stab of realization. Like a person waking up mid-dream and not liking what they see. She didn't ask why. Maybe because she already knew. Alex wasn't home that morning. He was back on campus, or so I thought. But by that evening, the storm hit. He burst through the front door like a man on fire. Backpack slung over one shoulder. Phone in his hand. Fury etched across every line of his face. "You canceled my tuition?" No hello. No question. just accusation. Karen appeared behind him, hovering, unsure if she was referee or casualty. Alex didn't even glance at her. His eyes burned through me. I didn't flinch. I did. His voice cracked. You can't do that. I'm enrolled. I have classes. I have deadlines. I cut him off. Calm. Quiet. I didn't stop paying. I stopped being your father. That was your choice. He stared. For the first time, I saw fear beneath the rage. You can't be serious. I am. You're ruining my future. No, I said. You did that the moment you looked me in the eye and told me I wasn't your father. He looked at Karen then, like she might intervene. She didn't. She looked small. Smaller than I'd ever seen her. Her silence had come home to roost. That night, the house vibrated with tension. Alex stormed from room to room, slammed doors, shouted into his phone. Probably at Todd, the man whose name he'd weaponized against me. I heard the calls, the frustration, the pleading, the silence on the other end. I could imagine Todd, on some distant couch, shrugging through excuses. Tough break, kid. I'll see what I can do. Call your mother. That man never carried Alex through a single cold. Never paid for a field trip. Never stayed up past midnight to proofread his college essay. And yet, he was the one Alex clung to when the safety net vanished. By midweek, the second letter arrived. Final notice. Tuition due. Expulsion pending. Alex didn't knock when he entered my office. They're serious, he said. If it's not paid by Friday, I'm out. I nodded. I know. His hands clenched at his sides. Please, don't do this. You already did this, Alex. You made your position clear. I was angry. You were honest. He tried another angle. You've paid this long. You've done everything. Why stop now? Because I finally believed you. Silence. He didn't know how to fight that. Because it was the truth and he knew it. Then the anger came. This is insane. You can't just cut me off. I stood, walked past him, paused at the door. You said I wasn't your father. I listened. So now everything that came with that title, that's gone too. You want tuition? Call your dad. You want rent? Call your dad. You want gas money? Go ask your dad. His mouth opened, then shut, then opened again. He won't help. You know that. I turned. Then maybe you should have thought of that before spitting on the man who carried you for 16 years. He didn't follow me. The next 2 days were war. Not open, not loud, but constant. Karen tried, whispered suggestions. Quiet, please. Just this once, Michael. Help him through the semester. If I do it now, he learns nothing. He's scared. He didn't mean it. Yes, he did. She cried. Not loudly. Not for show. Real tears. But not for me. For the son she couldn't shield. I felt for her. I did. But not enough to bend. Friday came. Alex didn't go to class that day. Instead, he came home. His car, the one I bought him, sat in the driveway with the gas light on. I'd frozen the fuel card. He hadn't even noticed until it was empty. He didn't knock. He stood in the doorway of the living room. Hair a mess. Face pale. They're expelling me. I folded the newspaper I wasn't reading. I know. I'll do anything. I'll pay you back. I'll get a job. Just please, pay it this time. I looked up. Do you remember what you said to me? He nodded. Slowly. Shame blooming behind his eyes. Say it. His voice broke. Don't give me your last name. You're not my father. And that's the truth, right? He looked down. I didn't mean it. But you believed it. He didn't reply. He didn't need to. I stood, walked toward him, looked him dead in the eyes. I carried you, Alex, for 16 years. While your real father dropped in once a year with gifts he couldn't afford and promises he didn't mean. I was the one who stayed, who paid, who showed up. His lips trembled. You don't get to erase that with a sentence and expect the money to keep flowing. He dropped to his knees. I didn't move. Karen rushed in, fell beside him, held him like a mother holds a dying man. But I didn't move. I'm sorry, he whispered. Please, Don't leave me like this. I looked down at him. You left me first. And then I walked away, back into the kitchen, past the pictures on the wall, the ones where we all smiled like liars, back into the shadows where I had always lived, where fathers without titles are buried. Behind me, their sobs filled the house, but I didn't look back, because some silences should never be broken. 3 days passed after the door closed on Alex's apology, and the weight of it all began to rot the walls. It was quiet, the kind of quiet that vibrates behind your teeth. Karen barely spoke. When she did, her words came out like smoke. Faint, curling, burned out before they reached me. She moved slowly through the house, as if her body were betraying her with every step. Alex didn't leave his room. Not for food. Not for fresh air. Just silence, broken occasionally by the dry heave of emotion, by muffled calls to numbers that stopped picking up. I didn't check in. I didn't knock. The boy had made his declaration, and now he was standing in the wreckage of it. On the 4th day, I came home from work to find Karen waiting in the front hallway, purse over her shoulder, shoes on. Her eyes were red but dry. I'm going to my sister's. I nodded. She needs help with the kids, she added, as if that justified the escape. I said nothing. Before she turned to leave, she paused. He hasn't eaten since yesterday. It wasn't a request. It wasn't even guilt. Just a statement, something to fill the silence between us. I didn't follow her. I didn't watch her drive off. Instead, I walked through the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, stared out the window at the backyard I'd rebuilt with my own hands, the fence I'd stained, the grill I'd assembled, the garden box Alex never touched, not even once. By sunset, I heard movement upstairs, doors opening and closing. Alex was packing. I didn't need to ask where he was going. The options were limited, and none of them were welcoming. He came downstairs with 2 bags. Clothes, probably. Maybe a laptop. Notebooks. I'd bought them all. I bought everything he owned. He paused at the base of the stairs, eyes puffy and sunken, jaw tight from pride he couldn't swallow. I'm going to stay with a friend. I nodded once. Okay. Silence stretched between us like a blade. He opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. You didn't have to cut me off like that. My voice didn't rise. You said I wasn't your father. I was angry. You were honest. His lips tightened. He waited. For what? I don't know. Maybe for me to step in, to change course, to offer an out. But I had none to give. Good luck, I said. He left. That was the last I saw of him for 6 weeks. The first call came from Karen. She was still at her sister's, still distant, still bruised in that quiet way only mothers can be. He's struggling, she said. I know. His friend kicked him out. Apparently he didn't pay rent. I'm not surprised. She hesitated. He's staying on someone's couch now. One of the campus security guys found him sleeping in a study lounge. I said nothing. She pressed on. I told him to call Todd. I raised an eyebrow. And he didn't pick up. Of course he didn't. The next letter came in a different envelope. Handwritten. No return address. The penmanship was shaky. Not Alex's. Karen's. Inside was a note. Short. Cold. He's sorry. He's just a kid. No signature. No apology from her. Just a plea, covered in dust. I folded the note and slid it into a drawer. That night I ate alone. Pasta with too much garlic. A beer I didn't finish. The silence wrapped around me like a second skin. I began to sleep better. Lighter. Not happier, never happier, but clean. I didn't check the tuition portal. I didn't wonder about his grades. I didn't picture him walking across a graduation stage I might never see. The weight of someone else's child had finally rolled off my shoulders. And what remained was stillness. Not peace, but the absence of war. 3 more weeks passed. The house became museum quiet. Dust settled where laughter used to land. I stopped setting the table for 3. The dishwasher took twice as long to fill. The thermostat stayed low. Then, one evening, as October fell heavy outside, the knock came. Not loud, not angry, just soft, hesitant. One of those knocks you only use when you're not sure if you're allowed to be there. I opened the door. Alex stood there. Not a boy anymore. Not really. His cheeks were sunken. His hair hung over his forehead in tired strands. His clothes were wrinkled not from fashion, but from neglect. The backpack slung over his shoulder was half-zipped, revealing a tangle of notebooks and a crushed granola bar. He didn't step forward. "I'm not here to ask for anything," he said, voice hoarse, eyes dull. I waited. I wanted to say I get it now. I said nothing. He shifted his weight. I thought I was owed everything. I thought being blood was enough. He looked me in the eye then. Not defiantly, not fearfully, just truthfully. "I didn't see what you were. Not until it was gone." Still, I didn't speak. He glanced at the porch, at the railing I had sanded, the mat I had chosen, the doorbell I had installed. "I'm trying to figure out how to fix it. I just don't know how." That's when I spoke. "You can't fix something you never built." He nodded once, slowly, like it hurt. I stepped back, not to invite him in, just to let the cold in. He didn't move. "You taught me a lesson," he said. "The hard way. Sometimes that's the only way people learn." "I know." A long silence passed. He adjusted his backpack. "I'll go now." "Where are you staying?" "Friend's basement." "Still no word from Todd?" He shook his head. "He blocked me." Of course he did. As Alex turned to leave, I said one last thing. "You wanted him for the name. You got him. Names don't carry weight. Work does. Carried you, and you threw me off." He stopped on the walkway. The streetlight above him flickered. "I'm sorry." "I believe you," I said. He looked back, eyes hopeful. "But that doesn't change anything." The hope broke, like glass. You don't rebuild trust with apologies. You rebuild it with time. And even then, some things don't get rebuilt. He swallowed. "I understand. I hope you do." He nodded again, and then he walked into the dark. The days after that were colder. Not just the air in the house, the air between me and Karen, who eventually returned, quieter than she'd left. She didn't speak of Alex. Neither did I. But sometimes, I'd catch her standing in the hallway, looking at the framed picture from Alex's high school graduation. The one where he stood between us, arms limp, smile forced. I never told her, but I almost took it down. I left it because I wanted the reminder. 16 years I gave that boy. 16 years of effort, only to be told that biology was the only thing that mattered. And when the money stopped, when the support dried up, when the shield was gone, that's when he came back. Not with love, with need. And need is not respect. Need is survival. I am no longer here to save him. He will survive or he won't. But it will not be at my expense. The house feels different now. Not because they're gone. Karen still comes and goes, and Alex shows up in careful intervals, like a man circling a place he once robbed. It's different because something invisible was removed from the floorboards. The strain, the quiet expectation, the weight of pretending this was ever a family that wanted me as more than a means to an end. Sometimes I walk through the living room at night, where the carpet still has the faint imprint of the couch Alex used to drape himself across. Shoes kicked off, phone glowing in his hands, never looking up when I entered the room. That silence had a shape. It lived in the way he'd respond to Karen's voice but not mine. How he'd pass me the remote like I was a neighbor crashing in his house for the weekend. Now there's just absence. And somehow absence is cleaner. Karen tried after that last visit. She started leaving things unsaid in ways she thought I wouldn't notice. Notes on the fridge about bills, passive reminders about how much I had used to contribute. Once, I found an open browser tab on the laptop we shared. How to restore relationships after family estrangement. Closed it. She never said the word divorce. Neither did I. But the idea lingered, quietly, not as a threat, not even as a resolution. Just a truth waiting to find a voice. One morning, I came downstairs to find her crying at the kitchen table. Not sobbing, just tears. She didn't wipe them away. Do you hate him? I shook my head. Hating someone takes energy. She nodded like that answer hurt more than anything else I could have said. Then she asked something harder. Do you regret it? I paused. Not because I didn't know, but because I wasn't sure if she deserved the answer. Eventually, I gave it to her. No. I regret wasting so long believing things would change. She looked away, said nothing. That was the last real conversation we had for weeks. Alex sent a letter not long after that. Handwritten. Unlike the texts he used to ignore from me, unlike the calls he screened when I tried to wish him luck during exams, or to remind him to check the oil in the car I bought. The handwriting was neater than I expected. Careful. Almost formal. He didn't ask for anything. Not money. Not forgiveness. Just acknowledgement. The letter was mostly memories. Things I didn't know he remembered. A day at the batting cages when he was 10. A road trip to visit my sister where he threw up in the back seat and cried until I promised not to tell his friends. The time I taught him how to tie a tie before his first school dance. Small things. Forgettable things. But they weren't forgotten. Near the end, he wrote, I wanted to believe my father would come back. And the more you showed up, the more it made me hate him and hate myself. Because you were everything he wasn't. And admitting that felt like letting him go. I wasn't ready to do that. I don't think I ever said thank you. For any of it. I hope it's not too late. I folded the letter and slid it into the drawer where I keep the broken things. The apology Karen never said. The canceled tuition receipts. The faded picture from his birthday with the car keys in his hand. I didn't reply. Some things are not too late. Others are exactly what they are. A late payment on a house that already burned down. People tell stories about blended families like they're fairy tales. Like love and patience are enough. Like real isn't defined by blood but by effort. But here's the part they never tell you. Effort without respect is servitude. And that's what I was. A servant. A wallet with a pulse. A body in the background. A man who paid so a boy could live comfortably enough to believe he owed nothing in return. It's not about the money. It never was. I could have paid double, triple, sold my car, taken out loans. I would have done it all happily if I believed it meant something. If I believed it was seen. But it wasn't. It was expected. And expectation without gratitude is poison. Alex wasn't the only one drinking it. Karen did too. With every excuse, every deflection, every moment she let him disrespect me because it was easier than confronting her own failure to raise a son who could see beyond DNA. They thought I'd never walk away. They were wrong. Now I live in a smaller place. It's quiet, sparse, clean. No pictures on the fridge. No family calendar with scribbled soccer games and tuition due dates. Just me, a bookshelf I finally had time to organize, and a coffee machine that still brews for two, out of habit, not hope. Sometimes I hear from Alex. A message here. An email there. He's working part-time. Studying less. Struggling, I imagine. But surviving. He doesn't ask for help. And that's the first sign of real change. Not the apologies. Not the letter. The silence. The silence that says, I know I can't ask, because I haven't earned it. I respect that more than anything he's said with words. Karen and I still talk. Briefly. Softly. Once she asked if I'd ever come back. I asked her if she'd ever make him face what he did. She looked away. We both knew the answer. There's something I've been meaning to say. Not to them. To whoever's still listening. Because I know there are other men like me. Men who step in because they believe showing up is enough. Men who give everything, time, money, pride, in the hope that they'll be seen not just as mom's husband, but as dad. Let me tell you something. It's not enough. Not unless the people you're sacrificing for believe it is. Not unless your presence is treated like a privilege, not a placeholder. And if they tell you with words or with silence that you don't matter, believe them. Don't wait 16 years. Don't bleed yourself dry thinking your devotion will be enough to change them. Some kids will never see you as more than a shadow. Some partners will never stand beside you when it counts. Some families will let you drown so long as it keeps their boat steady. And when you finally stop swimming, they'll blame you for sinking. I tell this story not for sympathy. I don't need it. I survived. I found peace in the quiet. But I tell it for one reason. To ask you the question that still haunts me. Was I wrong? Was I cruel to finally pull away? To cut the cord? To let him face the cold he swore I never shielded him from? Or was it the only way to reclaim myself? From a house where I was always a guest, no matter how long I stayed. You tell me, if you were me, would you have endured it? Or would you have finally let go?